Are we on? Yes, we are. Okay, good. Okay, here we go. Never done this before, but we're gonna do some game dev live streaming, and we're keeping it real low key. I only announced this like 2 seconds before I was gonna do it because I didn't want more than a few viewers. Looks like I've only got one. That's awesome. Good for getting started. Okay, now I'm gonna test the chat real quick. I'm gonna do it on here. Testing. All right, it works. Try one more message. Okay, we're live. So I'm gonna be following chat on my phone instead of trying to keep it on the screen. So if anybody has any questions, just type them up there and I'll see it here periodically. All right, I'm gonna jump right into it. Today I'm working on Frontiers using the ancient Unity 4.7 engine. And I got a real simple thing to do today. I'm just going to tweak the missions a little bit. On my latest playthrough, I noticed that there was kind of an irritating problem with the missions where after starting Act 2, the mission Legacy didn't autocomplete because I hadn't completed every single, uh, what's it called? Well, let me load it up, I'll show you. I hadn't completed every task on the mission. And because I hadn't completed it, it wouldn't complete, even though the mission was basically over. Um, and this is irritating because it means the mission is just going to hang out forever while you do other things, and uh, there's no way to complete it after you start Act 2. So what I'm going to do, I believe it was game 10, that's just before Act 2 starts. What I'm going to do is add a new property to missions, basically a force autocomplete mission list, where once a mission is activated, um, uh, the missions manager will go through this list and force complete any missions that are on the list. Real simple. I'll be changing the mission class. I'll be probably changing the mission manager code. I'll actually change the mission itself, the text file, and then I'll re-import it and play it. And hopefully I should be able to get all that done um, before this is over. I adjusted the font on the text editor to make sure you could see my code. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see the game itself. Make this a little bit bigger. Now you probably already noticed that I'm playing at the absolute lowest settings and that everything looks like garbage. If you played this game, if you played it on Steam, you know it looks a lot nicer. And that's because I'm using the Unity 4.7 editor, which is ancient and 32-bit. So, you know, the game executable is 64-bit now, but in the 32-bit editor, ooh, yikes. That's ugly. I resized all the terrain maps from 1024 by 1024 to 512, and in places where there's sort of dramatic elevation changes, there are still problems with, yikes, it's everywhere. Okay, I need to go back through and fix that. Anyway, I was talking about the 32-bit editor. Yeah, the 32-bit version of Frontiers can run with high-resolution textures and stuff, but in the editor, when you add the editor overhead on top of the game itself, you would just crash all the time. So I have all the options turned totally off. I have everything turned down. LED render distance is up. I should probably turn that down just to make sure that I don't crash while I'm developing because it gets real irritating. Okay, so what I'm about to do is I'm about to walk into a trigger that will end Act 1. And here's the legacy. This is the mission I was talking about. And you can see that I've already done everything in the mission except for this one objective, decipher Daniel's secret message. And this is actually an optional, um, it's an optional objective. You don't have to do it. Obviously, you don't because I'm here. The goal is to get into this room, and uh, if I had to decipher the message to do it, I wouldn't be in here right now. But after I trigger Act 2, there's no way to go back and complete this. So it just hangs out as an active mission forever, even though even though that's false. So here I go. And we're probably going to see some funky animation. I haven't messed with the avatar, so it's probably going to look weird. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, that's strange. Okay. So here we go, running through the cutscene. I've got sound and music turned off just because I didn't want anything competing. Okay. Yes, 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 Rift model, so on and so forth. Okay, new mission. Dano's in trouble, someone's gonna need to go after him, blah, blah, blah. New mission, friends. So this is the first mission of Act 2. And Act 1 mission is still going. So that's the problem. That's what we're gonna fix. And I'm gonna get started right now. Okay, so that's going to be a missions problem. So again, I'm sure you can barely see Unity Editor's tiny little font on this monitor. As far as I know, there's no way to adjust the font size, so I'll just have to sort of narrate what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm opening the mission class now. We'll use MonoDevelop. Okay. Now, this is the first time I've actually looked at missions in a while. This game is so big that I usually forget how things work, and I have to sort of relearn as I dive back into a system I haven't touched for a while. So I'm going to just sort of scan this and figure out what's going on. Okay, so this is the mission class, which is a monobehavior. That's going to be in here. Okay, the way Frontiers is organized, we've got a bunch of manager classes. They just oversee everything like little gods in a pantheon. And the missions class is in gameplay managers. Yes. So each one of these objects that I'm cycling through has a number of manager objects attached to it, all of which inherit from manager. It's pretty simple. They know, they listen for events. They manage their own objects. I won't get into that too deeply because it's kind of dry. But missions is a manager. It hangs out here, and it creates under here. And again, I'm sort of relearning this as I talk, so if it's a little scattershot, forgive me. The missions manager creates a bunch of mission game objects under this object in the hierarchy, attaches the mission script to them, and then loads a mission state. Oops, just launched Moto. It loads a mission state. Mission state. Right. Which is non-serialized because we don't want it to save that information if I make a prefab of it. Okay. It loads the mission state. So this is right here. This is all the mission data. This is the save file, essentially. The actual object that sort of execute mission commands and stuff is a mono behavior. It doesn't have any of this. It doesn't store any of this data because it's created on the fly at runtime. This is the object that's saved and loaded to and from disk. And this is what we're going to be changing first. We're going to be adding something to this that lets us define missions to autocomplete. What's going on with this formatting already? Mono developers driving me crazy. Okay, formatted document. So what have we got here? We've got a bunch of helper properties here and helper methods. Title, icon name, mission origin type, origin name, objectives completed, has announced completion, mission status. By the way, this is all on GitHub. So if you want to load up this code and follow along with me, you're welcome to. I should have put, let me see if that's showing up. Yes, it is. I should have put, yeah, right there on the little banner at the bottom of the screen, there's the GitHub address. Okay, get player attention, mission completion, variables, and objectives. Okay, so I'm just going to add a list here of strings of, what do I call it? Mission autocomplete? Force complete? I got to name this carefully. I have to spend a lot of time thinking about the correct names for things because, as I said, I have to sort of relearn these systems every so often. And if I choose the wrong names, it has actually sent me down blind alleys before. So what we're doing is we're defining a list of missions that will autocomplete once this mission is completed. No, once this mission is started. So auto force complete on start. Okay. So the mission state, save state, will now have a list of mission names called force complete on start. Now, thankfully, because of the way mods are saved and loaded, this isn't going to invalidate existing missions or anything like that. I'm using XML. I wisely stayed away from binary save files, so I don't have to worry about offsets or anything like that. So all I have to do, what do I have to do? How do I do this? Man, it's been years since I've done this. Not years, but it's been a long time. I have to import the new missions. So how's this going to work? All right, well, let me load up a mission in text form, and you can see what it is I'll be importing. It's pretty simple. We've got legacy. No, we've got friends. That's going to be the one that we're actually editing. Okay, here is an import file. All it is a text document that I load up and I interpret, and I convert the properties that I've defined here to these properties one by one. And then I save this object, which I've created from this data, as an XML file, which can then be loaded and saved as a mission state. So this is like a sort of a weird intermediary format that I created just so that I can, you know, read it as a human. Um, I suppose if I was insane, I could compose XML myself, but that would be a pain. So it's a real basic format. It starts off with, um, oh, okay, so this is going to be easy, I think. It starts off with a list of variables that I just read in one by one, split with the equal sign, oops, and then assign using reflection, which is in C# where I grab a property by its name and I can assign a value to that property. Um, so it looks like, but the question is, how would I do a list here? If I wanted to limit myself to one force complete mission on start, and I may, then this would be as simple as saying force complete on start equals legacy. And instead of making this a list of strings, I would just make this a string, say it's string empty. And this variable would be automatically assigned by the import process with no further work necessary, as long as these two names are exactly alike, which they are. So that would be all I need to do to get the data into the mission state from this file. I think I'm going to do that instead of using a list. I may regret that later, but if I do, whatever. The reason I hesitate to do a list is because off the top of my head, I can't remember how I format lists in these documents. I know I can do it somehow, um, but I don't remember how, and I don't really feel like getting into it since all we need is this one mission at a time to be completed. Okay, so I've saved that now. Now, every time I import a mission state, whether it's if it's legacy or whatever, and I don't define that property, it will just be string empty, which is fine, which I'll just program to interpret as there's nothing we need to force complete when this mission starts. Um, boy, I hope I'm being clear right now. It's hard to tell. I'm thinking out loud as clearly as I can, uh, but there's every possibility that everything I've said so far has just been word salad. If it is, just kindly inform me in the text, and um, I'll try to figure out something different for next time. Okay, so first I'm going to test and make sure that this works. Force complete on start equals legacy. I'm going to verify really quickly that import data importer, that the data importer does in fact do what I suspect that it does, and that I'm not looking up these properties one at a time without using reflection, because if I am, I'd have to add this manually, but I don't think that's the case. Oh, so we're about to open the data importer, which is literally the ugliest piece of code I've ever written. Um, oh boy. Oh man. I'm almost embarrassed to like show this to people. This is one of those scripts that started out as like a 50-line thing where all I was doing was importing a list like this. It was um, a property name, value, property name, value. And I would just go down the list one by one. And that was fine. It worked great. But then the first thing I altered it for was book importing, and that added like another 100 lines, and it was really kludgy. But I kept thinking, okay, well, it's gonna be fine. I'll replace it later. And then, of course, because I had this sort of infrastructure set up, I started using it for importing everything. When I started using it to import conversations, that's when it got really ugly, because conversations are complex. And oh my God, just looking at it is making me feel ill. I mean, look at this. Look at these nested. Oh God. Okay, but I gotta keep my eye on the ball here. The point is that this is ugly, but at least I've got it sort of broken out here. Mission import. Let's see. Okay, so first we split it. Okay, first we split it between start objectives and everything that comes before. That's good. And then we split the objectives by that. That's fine. Okay, we split mission vars. We split by new line. I can already pretty much tell that I was right about this, that I'm using reflection. Okay, if it starts with a comment, nothing. If it starts with a hash, it's a mission variable. That's correct. A mission variable is different from a property of the mission state. Mission variables we actually keep in a list. Let's see, where are they? Yeah, it's a dictionary of string ints um, that we use to keep track of things. For instance, I mean, you can see here ransom default value equals 0. Um, there's a ransom in this mission, and its value is changing, and we need to refer to it, constantly in conversations and in the mission text and stuff like that. And so uh, rather than create a property, ransom or something that's shared among all the missions, we just have a little dictionary of variables that conversations and characters and world events can refer to through the missions manager. So these are things that we treat as mission variables, and the rest, God, I'm already confused. Split mission var, here we go. So we split it according to equals. We get the name and the value. I set script var. This must be a helper function to handle reflection. Am I right about that? Yes, it is. Oh, that's how I handle a list. Okay, but I still don't want to deal with it because it's funky. I separate it with commas, apparently. It's so weird to go back through your own code and sort of see your own mind operating through the lens of time. Okay, so that's going to end up being a default because I'm not doing anything funky with it. So I'm safe. This should work. Just setting force complete on start equals legacy should result in this mission state for legacy receiving that value. So we're going to try it. I've saved that, saved all that, going back here. Now I just need to remember the import process. Let's see, I play and then I use the console. That's right. Okay. So everything looks to be compiled. XML. I'm going to open up an XML editor here and open legacy right now. Frontiers worlds, frontiers mods, mission, legacy. So we can sort of look at the structure here. So there's the name, description, type, blah, 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 list and available, title, icon, blah, 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 blah. So we see here that there's obviously no force complete on start yet. So we'll run an import. Now import type mission, and I'll just import all of them. Um, here we go. Okay. Missions imported, you may need to reload to see changes, yada, yada, yada. So that should have run this script, should have pulled this data in. I'm going to, yep, it's been modified. Force complete on start. Okay, it was set to nothing. Am I looking at the right thing? No, I'm looking at legacy, not friends. That's why. Force complete on start. Legacy, there it is. Okay, so the first part of um, our problem is fixed, getting that data in there. Now we've got to, oh, and you also just saw here that it it created this property in here too. It just didn't fill it with anything because there was nothing in there as expected. Okay, so this has been converted to XML. It's ready. Now I just need to tell Mission what to do with it because the data is no good if you can't do anything with it. So let's look at what Mission is doing. This is the class that actually uses the mission data to accomplish things. So what do you do, my friend? Well, you can be activated. You can be refreshed. Force complete. Look at that. I can't recall actually using force complete in the game, but I must have seen this problem coming because it appears I have a force complete method. Let's see what it does. For each mission objective in our objective lookup, force complete the objective. I even went so far as to define force complete in the mission objective. So the way missions are organized is, you saw here we had a division between objectives and the properties of the mission state. Objectives are themselves separate objects. In this file, and they have a hierarchy. They're nested. In this file, I define the hierarchy with tabs. You can see which objectives own other objectives. And when I pull this in, I generate a list of objectives starting with the root objectives, which have no tabs. And each objective has a list of objectives which controls like their activation order. Like if this objective owns this objective, then if objective A owns objective B, then when A is completed, B is activated by default. That's how this works. So what I'm doing here is I'm going through all the objectives in my lookup. I wonder why I'm using a lookup instead of just going through the list of objectives in my state. That's a little odd. It seems inefficient, but whatever. The lookup I create to make it quicker to look up objectives by name, which is something that a lot of other scripts do. Believe it or not, even though there are only a handful of objectives in any given mission, going through them one by one and searching through the hierarchy for a name happened frequently enough for it to be a performance bottleneck. So I ended up creating this lookup, which I'm now using. I'm using the values for some reason. Whatever. So I'm going through each mission objective and force completing that objective. And the mission objective is structured in very much the same way as the missions themselves. You have a mono behavior, which contains an objective state, which strangely enough is not non-serialized. That's a mistake. Why would I not non-serialize that? You fool. Okay, I have an objective state there. And then the actual state is down here. Name, file name, description. It's really like a little mini mission. And then I have my objective script. So I'm calling force complete on this fella. I'm just setting completed to true. I'm setting I'm unsetting a status flag here. Oh man, this is all coming back to me. I have two separate ways for a mission to be completed. Now, why did I do that? You know what? It doesn't matter. I know that it works. I'm just going to skip over that. I force complete the objective. I remove the status active and dormant from the status. That makes sense. The status is an enum. It's a flags enum. It can be dormant, active, completed, ignored, or failed. So in this case, I'm not saying it's completed in the status because I'm force completing it. I'm setting this to completed. Oh man, what am I doing? Okay, again, I know it works. I don't have time to get into every little thing. All I need to know is that I already have a force complete method. And then after the force complete method is called, I send out an avatar action, which is a whole other thing. Basically, Frontiers has like an internal messaging system for basic things that happen in the game that other objects in the world need to be listening for. One of those things that happens is an objective being completed and a mission being updated. So I'm sending both of those out here. Even though I'm force completing every objective and therefore sending these every time this is called, that's okay because avatar actions don't get spammed. If multiple uh, actions that are of the same type are received, they're just stacked. So that's fine. Okay, so basically what I want to do is on activate, if not objectives completed, right, and if we're not active, then do all this stuff. Create and activate the first objective. Okay, before I do any of that, this is where the magic is going to happen. If we have a mission to force complete, do that here. If string is null or empty state, force complete on start. I get a mission. Now the way that I communicate with other missions is through the missions manager, which is just missions get mission by name. I could do that. How am I going to do this? It would be nice if I could just send a message to the missions manager saying, please force complete this mission for me. Formatting's all messed up. Okay, so now I've jumped into the missions manager. This is one of those managers I was telling you about. It's basically like the god of missions. It's what creates and loads all the missions on start because missions are not autonomous. They don't know how to load themselves. And it's it's sort of like the interface through which I get missions and so that I can modify them and through which missions communicate with each other. So it also has a lot of helper functions you can see here, like get variable value. These are mission variables. These are the things I was telling you that other scripts and stuff are constantly accessing. So instead of, trying to go to the mission and getting the variable through the mission, I have these shortcuts in the missions editor. Okay, so activate mission, activate objective, force fail mission. Look at that. I already have a method defined. Mission, if mission by name, then mission force fail. So the way mission by name works is if the mission is already instantiated, if the mission is already instantiated, I just return that mission. If it's not instantiated, then I instantiate it because I need to access it, and then I return that mission. So there's basically no way this can fail. Okay, this is a little funky, but whatever. Force fail mission, that's how I'm going to do it. So This is turning out to be way easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought I'd be noodling around with this code for hours, um, but it turns out past me already did a bunch of this work. Okay, if force complete on start is not null or empty, missions get force complete mission state force complete on start. Boom. That's it. That's all I have to do. That's interesting. All right, I'm going to save everything. Stop that. Okay, so now the trick now is that in that saved game, there's a problem. The problem is that the way that saves work in Frontiers prevents those changes from being propagated over to the save game. Um, I'll really briefly explain how the mods system works so that you understand this new problem. In the Frontiers like data folder, you've got two big folders. Libraries, import, and assets. You guys don't see these on your copy because this is like local dev stuff. Like import contains all of the raw mission files and raw conversations and their, raw forms. So you don't see any of that. You just see profiles and worlds. And worlds it's a collection of XML data that defines the world, and this includes missions, right? Um, it includes this file, which we just, you know, added this to. And the way that the game works is when you start a new game, uh, you're basically creating a partial duplicate of that world as needed. Um, so you can, and let me show you the difference between, here's the mods folder for the Frontiers world, which is a complete description of the world. And you can see there's a lot of stuff. Here is my save game file for game 10 in that world, in the Frontiers world. It's not as much stuff, and this is because these are the only things that I have modified. I've had these conversations. Here are all the conversations that you can have, right? But I've had these conversations. I've messed with these missions, right? And what happens is every time the game asks for a piece of data, it's every time it says, hey, I need this structure, or I need this mission, or I need this conversation, or whatever. The first thing it does is it checks your save game, and if there's a file in here, that overrides whatever is in the world. So if you've changed something, if you've changed the state of a mission or whatever, it loads that instead of this, and you end up with this sort of local copy, which is great in some respects. It's a nice simple system. It's really straightforward. It means I don't have to get too clever about how I'm saving information. I don't have to save like a diff file or something for these files. I just save the complete file and use that instead. The problem is that any changes I make in here and in here in the world data isn't going to be propagated to my local save data. These files are effectively out of date. The game will still run them fine. It'll still load them, but it will load an empty force complete on start. In fact, the XML file won't even have this defined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. Um, oh wait, no. We're actually going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I just realized that legacy has been changed, but friends hasn't, and friends is the one that we changed. Once we activate that mission, then we'll save a local copy of that file. But the first time that we load it, it's going to come from the world's mods folders, not from my local mod. Oh, this is going to work out great. Another problem solved. That one kind of by luck, but I'm grateful for it because I hate manually editing XML files, even if it's just adding little things. I better check the chat. I have a feeling it's just empty, but we'll check it anyway. Okay, still nothing. That's good, which means viewership is low, which means this first trial run of the stream is mostly unobserved. All right, so we should be set. I'm going to load game 10 just like I did before. And if you think the loading times suck on the 64-bit that you're playing on Steam, just try dealing with the editor for a week. Why are we looking at the hierarchy? That's going to make things slow. Okay. Earlier I was saying, I didn't really complete my thought, but earlier I was saying that there's a little square in the lower corner of the screen that you guys don't get in the finished game. It's the image loader for loading structures. Basically, it shows the texture to the camera before dumping the structure into the world, so that it forces Unity to load the textures beforehand instead of all at once to prevent out-of-memory errors. One of those little kludgy hacks that I use to make things go a little bit smoother. Okay, here we go. We're going back into this room. Just verify that. Okay, legacy, one objective outstanding. Okay, opening that. Funky cutscene. Act 2. Okay, I'm just going to skip this and skip straight to the... All right, new mission, friends. Now, I'm going to pause this briefly and jump over to here. And we're going to save game 11. Okay, done. Game 11, here we are. Mission, friends, excellent. Let's open that in here. I mean, we already know that that it worked, but I just like to verify. Mission, friends. There it is. Force complete on start legacy. That's in my save game now, so it did propagate. There's the moment of truth. Let's see if it completed. It did! Look at that. All right, legacy is completed. Investigate coordinates was force completed. Now friends is the only one that's active. All right, problem solved. That was surprisingly easy. I really thought that was going to take a lot longer, but I have Past Me to thank for doing all of that work early on, I guess. Usually I'm cursing Past Me for screwing things up for myself, but today I get to thank Past Me for making things easier. What was that? Oh, hold on. Let me make a note about this collider. Okay. I just went through a collider binge where I was trying to fix all the colliders in this area, and elsewhere. So seeing one not working is a little frustrating. Yeah, boy, what am I gonna do now? I had that one problem planned. I guess I'm gonna call it a day, actually. I know it's only been an hour, but for a first stream, I think that went fine. I'll call it quits while I'm ahead, and I'll save. I'll set aside a bigger problem for the next stream, um, and maybe I'll even look into it just a little bit ahead of time to make sure that uh, I haven't done all the work in the past. Okay. All right, that was fun. Um, Thanks for dropping in, all who are there, if anyone. Yeah, I'll see you next time.